Now, when people think of the first video game console, they probably think of the Atari 2600. But actually, there was a console before that used ROM cartridges. Yeah, released a year earlier, 1976, the Fairchild Channel F came out. And it was the first console to use ROM cartridges, beating the 2600 by a year. Now, I don't have a Fairchild Channel F, so let's go on eBay and find one. Well, shit. It looks like $400, a little bit out of my price range. So, I guess we're going to be just talking about the 2600. This is the Atari 2600, also referred to as the VCS or Video Computer System. Now, this released way back in 1977. Yeah, September 11th to be exact. Yeah, this had a shitty 24th birthday. So, in 1977 and early 1978, they made all the Ataris in Sunnyvale, California, here in America. And this is what this one is. It's referred to as a Sunnyvale Heavy Sixer. It's heavy because, well, it's heavy. It also has 6 switches, and it's got the thicker sides, and the sides actually go up 90 degrees versus whatever degree angle the normal 2600s are. And this is just about probably the rarest 2600 you can get. But early on in 78, they moved their production to Taiwan and they started making these. This is still a heavy sixer, except it's less heavy, and it was made in Taiwan. These are a lot more common, but they're still relatively rare. This is the 4-switch Woody. And as you can see, it's a lot smaller. The angles aren't 90 degrees, and they're also not as thick as the heavy sixer. And then there's only 4 switches. Well, that's because they moved the difficulty switches to the back. And actually, they moved everything up. The original 2600s, they were down here. They moved everything up to the slant, which is really nice. And then in 1986, I'm pretty sure, they released one more model of the 2600 called the Junior. That one was $50. It was a lot cheaper. It looked like a 7800 more like. And they're not as common. But let's stop yapping. Let's play some fucking games. Now this is what you call a controller. And not a fucking telephone in television. So, it's pretty self-explanatory. You got a button, that does inputs in the game. And then you got a joystick. That moves you around in the game. Yeah, you can't get much more basic than that, except for fucking Pong. Why is the cord 3 feet long? Like, I get it. It's the 70s. Your console sits right next to you when you play, and you sit on the floor, right? But in a modern day standpoint, that doesn't work. People like to sit on their couch across the room. 3 feet ain't across the room, unless you're living in a dorm. Another thing. Why is the controller port in the back of the console? I mean, okay, everybody else was doing it at the time, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea. I mean, hundreds of people go to Burger King every day. That doesn't mean it's a good idea. Okay, so this is one of the games on the 2600. And as you can see, the graphics are very simplistic, just like every Atari game. Doesn't make it a bad game, though. This is what you would call a joystick game. There were also paddle controllers. One thing that I always kind of thought was weird with the paddle controllers is they always came in bundles of 2. So, one controller port held 2 of them, which kind of makes sense if you're playing games like Warlords, but I don't have enough friends to play Warlords, so... Now, if you've ever played paddle games, you know just how fun they are when the paddles work. You gotta press reset on the console for a lot of the games, too. Berserk is one of the very few where you can just press the button and start the game. Fun fact, this game was actually coded by Steve Jobs. You know, the guy that made Apple. Yeah, Steve Jobs worked at Atari. Overall, what do I think of the Atari 2600? It doesn't hold up the greatest today, especially considering that it only has RF connection, so it's kind of hard to connect it to flat screens, and, well, to be honest with you, why would you want to connect it to a flat screen TV anyways? But it's a lot of fun! The controls are basic. I mean, they're not hard to understand, they're basic, but it's so much fun. The games are so much fun. And the console isn't rare, so it's cheap to get. It's a great system. Honestly, if you want to play good arcade games, might not be the best ports, but they're just a lot of fun. Before you do purchase it though, just keep in mind that Atari did re-release the 2600 as the 2600 Plus. You can buy it on Amazon for $130, I think. And it comes with a 10-in-1 cartridge. And it works HDMI. There isn't much input lag, if I remember correctly. It's a really nice system. So, if you're not crazy serious about the 2600, I would recommend the 2600 Plus, just because, whatever. But if you're hardcore, like I am, yeah, get an original one, because the original is just a lot cooler, in my opinion.